All right. Well, we're back. Another month has gone by, and it's time for the LeagueDAO community call number 3. A lot has happened in the past month. It's crazy to think it's been only a month, but we're super excited with all the stuff we've got been working on and are about to have go out in the next couple weeks. Really foot to the gas pedal. So don't want to take too long kind of giving intros and things like that. But did want to just at the top of the call start with one piece of sports trivia. So we'll see if everyone on this call can answer it. So here we go. All right. Here's the question. Who led the National League in strikeouts? They had 236 strikeouts and won National League Rookie of the Year in 1995.
It's got to be
Janet Yellen. Jackie Robinson.
I mean, who won the World Series in 1995? What was it? The Atlanta Braves, or
that was the Braves.
Oh yeah, well there you go. It's timely.
Greg
Timely question.
What is it? Chipper Jones?
I'm gonna say that's a worse guess than Tyler saying Janet Yellen, just because of, like, Chipper Jones is an actual baseball player, but but sorry, maybe I'll clarify. It was which pitcher led?
Pitcher.
So yes,
led
not a
the
batter
strikeouts.
striking out.
Bregman.
Oh, okay, that helps.
Maddox or Glavine.
All right. Well, you're all wrong. The answer is no other than Hideo Nomo.
Naturally.
Yes.
Of course.
Which is why I brought up that point of stat, because big
Atlanta
news
Braves
that we
fan
have
got
going right
great.
now is the impending launch of the Nomo Fantasy Football League and the Nomo player token drop. You can see I have my Hideo Nomo warm-up jacket in the background that I very proudly adorn. Hideo Nomo is also, I think he was the first Japanese pitcher to play in Major League Baseball. Fun fact as well. So
That's crazy.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely like a pretty iconic figure in my opinion. Especially as like a young kid growing up in LA, like it was pretty cool to have him. So the big news we have is that we're going to be launching the Nomo Protocol this week, and I've got a lot more. We have a lot more details about that. Some Q&A that we'll go through that the community has shared. But one of the key points, and we'll bring this up again, is that we are launching the Nomo Protocol on Polygon. So it's not going to be on the Ethereum mainnet. It's going to be on Polygon, and the player tokens will be sold on Polygon. There's a lot of people who haven't actually interacted with Polygon yet, haven't purchased anything or used dApps on there. And one of the big pieces that I think people might not be aware of is on Polygon, you don't use Ether to pay transaction fees. You use Matic. So what we're going to do is a little giveaway. So for anyone who's watching this, let's say the first 10 people who watch this and send us a tweet with the name Hideo Nomo, showing that you paid attention to the sports trivia, we'll send you, and a wallet address, I guess we're going to need that too, we'll send you 5 Matic, which, because of how great Polygon is, that's all you need to purchase your player tokens and stake them in the Nomo League. And if you haven't used Polygon, you're in for a surprise and a real pleasure, because gas fees are cents as opposed to hundreds of dollars. So it's So yeah, that's the other fun thing to start with. First 10 people, give us a shout out on Twitter at LeagueDAO. Mention Hideo Nomo in the tweet, and we'll hit you up to give you some free Matic, so you can use it to cover your transaction costs on Polygon. All right, now moving into just nuts and bolts. Just a general DAO update. We are continuing to push forward and building the amount of League staked in the DAO to hit that activation threshold. I think we're a little less than halfway there of the 30 million League needed to activate the DAO. So that's exciting, because of course we need that to start putting up some proposals and get people voting. Regarding proposals, it's something that for the community, there's a lot of people have really great ideas and suggestions regarding what we're building and different features. Something I try to bring up when we're chatting in the Discord is, take these great ideas and think about how they could be distilled into a proposal that can be put up for the DAO to vote on. I think that's ultimately that's going to be how a lot of decisions need to be made regarding LeagueDAO, and definitely worth thinking about ahead of time and thinking about now. If there's stuff you think could be an interesting proposal, and if you go to our documents, so like docs.leaguedao.com, there's a breakdown in terms of the flow of like how proposals get created, how to create a proposal, all that stuff. And so there's a lot of helpful information to get you up to speed if you haven't interacted and been a part of a DAO in the past. And also on that, we are going to be launching soon the forum, so discourse. So that's really the first place. So if you have something that's like a bigger idea, a bigger proposal, or feature, or just something to discuss on that front, the process is really to start by posting it in discourse, and so we can have kind of a more formal, like longer discussion about it, and then that turns into a snapshot vote via snapshot, which is set up. And if you go to the DAO right now, you can go to the snapshot and see it. And that's sort of a primer before actually we then, assemble what is the actual proposal and that goes into the DAO itself, into that smart contract. So there are some steps before it. So step one is putting things into the forum so we can discuss them and people can weigh in. We're going to be launching that forum pretty soon. And so that's the other, just kind of keep an eye out for that, because I think there's a lot of people with great ideas that want to weigh in, and we want to formalize that process so that way people have a clear forum and space to get those ideas out and have them not just get buried in Discord. The last piece of DAO housekeeping is the airdrop. A lot of people ask questions about this, which is expected. And we haven't shared a lot of details, but we did announce during the week, and if you go into the announcement section in Discord, you'll see this, the sort of game theory and how the mechanics of the airdrop will work. And this is important because it's not sort of the airdrop you might have used before, where it's just, tokens get sent to your wallet, or you go and just claim them, and that's that. There is a game theory to it, and this is something that we are co-opting or forking from Universe DAO, which is, I think, a really cool concept, which is basically there's all the pool of people that are eligible for the airdrop. The airdrop does not sort of vest all at once. It vests over a period of, we're doing 52 weeks, so over 1 year. And you can claim your share at any point, but you can only claim once. So if you claim airdrop in the first week, you only get that 1 week's worth of the airdrop, or you can wait till the very end and claim the full amount. And what happens is anytime someone claims early, the tokens that they are basically giving up or being penalized by claiming early, those go into the pool and get redistributed to everyone else. So people are actually rewarded by waiting to claim, but you could decide maybe it makes sense to claim earlier, but that still benefits sort of the rest of the pool. So there's a fun game theory there, and it's something that's different and people might not have experienced before. We'll have a Medium article go out that has more details about it when we launch this. We're not going to be launching it for a little bit. And currently, as of today, the only eligibility that we've announced for the airdrop is people who were active in the Discord before 10/10 or on 10/10, which means you had to have commented or done something more than just join the Discord. So you have to actually participated in some way. That's not to say that is the final sort of sum of who will be eligible for the airdrop, but that's all that we have announced at this point. Okay. So that's the airdrop. That's the DAO housekeeping. The next thing on the agenda to keep this moving is crypto fantasy. So give it up to the crypto fantasy team. One, you guys want to give a recap on just the last couple weeks, in terms of the prizes and some of if there are any like interesting stats you guys saw. I think there's some cool stuff when we talked about it that stood out, and then also just updates in terms of dev and continuing to improve and iterate on the format.
Yeah. So in the first 3 weeks of prizes, we've given out just under $100,000 in prizes, which is kind of awesome. And there's been a couple funny things that I think have happened. For the most part, it's been almost completely. I don't think we've had a single team that has won multiple times for middle, top 5, bottom 5, IR top, which is awesome. I mean, that was our goal, and it was something that we were hoping would be the case with the randomness of the contract and how the players are generated, but was definitely something we weren't sure if some teams were just going to be weekly winners every time. So that's been awesome. And then the other thing that's been interesting is kind of the community in the Discord we've been asking about different prop bets, and the community's kind of settled on having that middle, having the bottom 5, having the top 5, having the top with IR eligible, and then the longest touchdown. And so we've actually kept that for the last 2 weeks, and then we're doing it for this week as well. So it's been interesting that we started with the idea of we're just going to do top and bottom 5, and it's already changed, right? Like the community's already made an impact on how we're giving prizes out, which has been cool. And then one of the things that's led to is kind of decisions that we're making now in the back end and software sides and how we're coding this back end. And we currently have this stopgap leaderboard that's static and just manually gets updated by me a couple times a day on Sunday, after Thursday and on Tuesday morning. But we're in the process right now of having a fully automated app that you'll connect your wallet to. You'll contextually see all of your teams, how they're doing, if any of them are placing in any of the cool prizes, if they're projected to get anywhere close to these things, and then you'll also see a full leaderboard that you can start filtering in kind of interesting ways and interact with. A lot much better experience than the current stopgap. So pretty excited about kind of where the future of this is going, and very much building this out in such a way that we're sport agnostic.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of Nate, it's been really cool being part of the DAO because, now we have super cool app designs. We're really excited about the new app and leaderboard that we're building. It's going to be awesome. And then 2, just the community interaction has been super, super cool. All these new ideas coming in that we wouldn't have thought of. This is a completely new concept. The DAO is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially because I think compared to maybe some other protocols where you kind of there's so many things that are being built and planned behind the scenes before the DAO and project get launched, and then it's well, this is what we iterate. I feel like with crypto fantasy, it was here's this sort of base MVP, and let's get it out. And then that by releasing it earlier, we then create this opportunity for the community to have greater say in terms of what the product actually will entail and like features that are incorporated into it. Like we're not working with this like 900-pound gorilla that's hard to change and, you know, sort of stuck in this one vision.
Exactly. And just being able to get feedback like so quickly, you know, with other products, sometimes you kind of have to like dig and dig to get feedback or new ideas. But like the community has just like come together and just thrown all these great ideas on the table.
And as a software developer, I'm like scared to do what I'm about to do, but I hate giving timelines so that we can.
Don't do it.
Not for promise, but you know, we're getting close on launching some pretty cool features coming up. So definitely have some stuff in users' hands to make it more enjoyable quickly.
Right. Yeah. Right, and then I think there's some stuff that I put in a section at the end, with just like I dubbed future dev, where we can kind of talk about more like future state ideas and features and things like that. So maybe there's some other stuff with Crypto Fantasy I'll bring up then if I leave time for us. But to keep the call moving, and thanks for that update on Crypto Fantasy. So we are. So the next section I wanted to bring up is just the Nomo launch and the Nomo leagues, because that is, you know, big stuff that we have coming up. So just the top line stats for anyone watching: the Nomo League and Nomo player tokens will deploy on Tuesday, November 9th. There will be and really what will happen is we'll have the token drop take place on November 9th, and then simultaneously we'll launch the league. So what users will do is you'll have to purchase your player tokens and then go and stake those player tokens in the Nomo League in the dApp itself. So staking these player tokens, these NFTs in the dApp is what actually enters them into the league and puts them in, basically allows them to compete against other player tokens for a share of the weekly reward pool. The token drop will have, so we're doing a short 2-hour pre-sale window, and people that for the pre-sale, it's people who either minted a crypto fantasy team, so people who really kind of got on board and early adopters, they get first crack at purchasing a player token, a Nomo player token, and then we're also sort of extending out to the universe community, and people who are polymorph holders also get an opportunity in that pre-sale window to mint a player token. So those two groups are going to be on the whitelist for the pre-sale. That'll start at 4 p.m. EST or 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then we'll go for 2 hours, and then the general public sale will start at 6 p.m. EST. And how we're doing it also is with the pre-sales, there's a limit of 1 mint per wallet. So people aren't buying up all the tokens in that pre-sale window. So you can only, if you're eligible, you only get to mint 1 player token in that pre-sale window. During the public sale, there's no maximum per wallet, but there is a 3 players per mint maximum per transaction. So you can only mint 3 players per transaction. And the reason for that is the total supply is 1,900 or 1,962. So it's a pretty small supply of player tokens. And what we're doing is, for football, this might change for other sports, we're doing, especially for this very first Nomo League, it's 1-for-1 for players. So there's only going to be 1 Tom Brady player token. And so the the number of the supply, which actually, as I'm saying this, is going to drop by one. We're going to remove Henry Ruggs from the supply. For if you don't know why, you can pull up ESPN. But we are conscious of things like that. Players that are on the IR are going to be included because your player tokens are good for multiple seasons. It's not just for this season. So, Trey Sermon, the 49ers, he's out for this year, but having his player token still puts you in a good place because he's a good player for the next season when he's back. So it doesn't make sense for us to not include players that are on injury reserve. It's just the guys that are really no longer in the league at all that we're trying to, be aware of and remove from that list. And we also didn't include players on practice squad. The positions that we included. So this is also a little bit different from what people might have encountered with fantasy football in the past. It is individual offensive players and individual defensive players. So there are a lot of names that people probably aren't familiar with, but are the cornerback for the Packers and actually will generate some points because of tackles and things like that. So we're using individual defensive player scoring along with offensive scoring, and you can find the details of the scoring on our docs. So docs.leaguedao.com. And trying to think. So I glanced over the top detail. So like I said at the outset of the call, the drop and the leagues are taking place on Polygon. The price per token, and we're doing this is in DAI, in stablecoin DAI. So it's 300 DAI for each player token. We're not doing it in ETH. So that's a little bit different from what most people are used to with NFT drops. But it makes sense because of sort of the game theory. And I have it on our agenda to just for like the quote unquote Nomo QA to talk about that. But okay, that was a lot. I kind of jumped through different things. Is there anything else anyone else wanted to add regarding the Nomo drop and launch?
No, I just think it's cool. I think in the beginning, and one of the things we did with Crypto Fantasy was that we had a pretty limited pool of players because we wanted players to be, players who are going to play and players who are going to get statistics. But what I like about what's happening with Nomo is, and what we're seeing, for me, feels like more this season than ever before, is all these crazy names that I've never heard of. And, I like to think that I've spent way more time on fantasy than the normal person are coming up, right? Like, you never know who the next Mike White is going to be. And, Cooper Rush and like all these crazy players are like, they're actually going to be like worth having. Like, it's kind of dope. So I just think it's a really cool part of the protocol for Nomo that's different from the Crypto Fantasy one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like scoring those, football cards that you never thought would become valuable, and next thing you know, you got that Matt White.
Yeah, but also it has been crazy to watch. Like, even it's like last night, like you had all of a sudden Mike White comes out of nowhere for the Jets, has a great game. Now he's starting. Sure enough, first drive he gets hurt, and Josh Johnson comes in.
How bad did he get hurt? I mean, because he's like a perfect example of why this is so fun. But did they say
they said he's going to start?
Be back next game.
Yeah. On the sidelines, it looked like he was trying to come back in at points. It's just his figure.
They were getting blown out. So
yeah, if you read it, it was something where like he hit his forearm on someone's helmet and he lost feeling of his hand, and so throughout the game they said he was just like doing everything he could to just like regain feeling in his throwing hand. And it wasn't until like the very end when it was already out of reach that he was able to, but he'll be able to come back, which really sucks for him when you think about it, because like it's like his big moment, and it's not even like a real like injury. It's like it's of course the real injury, but it's like he's there, probably felt like, damn, I could be out there, but he couldn't. But it just created an opportunity for someone else, and I think that's kind of the idea. Like, I think you have your top tier players, but I also think part of the game theory with the Nomo League is the like strategy of, the draft is randomized, but where the fun really will take place is on the secondary market. And, when you can find players that are, undervalued and, that you can get a lot more for than maybe whoever's holding them and selling them is willing to. And I think I know there's a lot of people feeling like, when they mint, they want to be able to get that value exactly when they mint their player token. But I think the fun is really the sort of skill that goes into the after post mint, really.
No, 100%. And like, I don't want to say his name. I'm going to, but Gabe Davis on the Bills, and this is just because I'm a Bills fanatic, but like, he's not getting a lot of PT right now because our receiving core is just ridiculous. But that guy's going to be a stud for a long time, and he might not pay off this year or next year in Nomo, but that's a good hold. I'm gonna try to scoop him.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of sleepers, especially when you add in defensive players. Like, there's a lot of sleepers.
The whole community, though.
If you follow college football like early on and you see these kids,
you're gonna crush.
You're gonna crush it in the NFL.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's true. I feel like one of like the best fantasy football move I did this year was picking up Michael Pittman for $1 in the draft. And I really like only know him just because he played wide receiver at USC,
right? And
because he hasn't been that great in prior seasons, but I remember watching him at USC and he's good. So like, I think that is a really interesting point. But I think especially when you get to defense, right? Like you get outside these big name players, and I think there's going to be a lot of value with defensive players too that maybe aren't as flashy, but they get a lot of tackles and they generate points.
Well, like that kid Tyler that you said from Notre Dame, I'd never heard about that safety.
Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, my gosh,
kid's fucking unbelievable.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I think that's like
he's probably the best safety I've seen play college football since Ed Reed. Like, he's gonna be like better than all those new safeties that have come out in the past couple years. Like, I mean, I think that kid's better than like Jalen Ramsey was in college, Derwin James, like Jamal Adams. Like, that kid is special. I haven't seen people do some of the stuff that he's done since like Sean Taylor and Ed Reed. If he doesn't get hurt, he's gonna be the real deal in the pros.
As a Canes fan, I appreciate you in that 2001 Canes team.
He was pretty damn good.
Yeah, so I know people, people in the community will have more questions about the player list and who we choose, but I think we're erring on the side of broadening the pool of players because that just creates more opportunity and more range for interesting things to come out of nowhere, and that just I think ultimately is more fun for people. And it's like when you get your players, if you don't know who they are, look up who they are. Like, just because it's not someone that is like a big name that you're familiar with doesn't mean that that player is not going to be valuable and like generate some points. I think that's going to be just an interesting thing as people begin to like research who's who. All right, so to keep it going, I did add just like a couple kind of Q&As that I just wanted us to touch on regarding the Nomo launch and leagues. The first one, just because it is, I think, a shift for a lot of people who are do a lot, with NFTs, or maybe aren't as familiar with crypto and NFTs, but are somewhat and participating in this. I feel like even with Crypto Fantasy, I've had a lot of people message me who their Crypto Fantasy team was the first NFT they ever bought. And, that's something that we somewhat anticipated just because of fantasy sports. And, there's, appealing to more than just kind of the core, like, degen out there. So the first question is why Polygon? Why are we doing this on Polygon? And why specifically Polygon as opposed to maybe other solutions? So I don't know. I've been talking a lot. Does anyone else want to give that answer? It's
I can give that answer.
like that's like a good, easy knock it out of the park.
I mean, the base of it is that Polygon's been proven as a scalability solution, as a solid side chain, at least in the current form. And there are some other options, but even if you look at something like Arbitrum or you look at Optimism, while they're really cool and everything, and they like get their security from Ethereum, they're still pretty expensive when you go ahead and use them today. And that's going to go down as time goes on, but we don't have time to wait for that. We're going to use the cheapest solution today. That's not Solana or something like that, because we want to go ahead and build out on Ethereum because we think that's the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's like, Polygon is still a part, like, Ethereum layer 2s, and I think are just, preferred, and the interoperability with Ethereum. And, but it just comes down to cost. Like, there are a couple initial steps out the gate that you have to get familiar with like bridging your funds from, crypto from Ethereum to Polygon, and, switching your wallet, like adding Polygon to like your MetaMask wallet, because you have to manually add the Polygon network to your MetaMask wallet. It's not just there automatically. Stuff like that ultimately, once you get past those hurdles, it makes things so different. And there's so much computation and a lot of processing that's going on with all the data that's required for the Nomo leagues, in terms of having it be decentralized and having like stats recorded on chain and things like that, that it just would be impossible to do it on the Ethereum mainnet. So Polygon opens up a huge door for us. And because of the actual like user play of like staking and unstaking your player tokens, it also makes it just cheaper and more feasible for everyone that's actually using it, because now you don't encounter gas fees in the way that you do with Ethereum. There's that initial cost to bridge funds to Polygon, and I definitely recommend, if you don't already have funds on Polygon, to do it sooner rather than later, to just get it out of the way, so that way you have your funds there. If you haven't spent any DAI on, like don't have DAI on Polygon, you can bridge some ETH and then go to a quick swap, and in the same way that you would with Uniswap, swap that the wrapped ETH or whatever, or Matic for DAI, so then you have it, and it'll cost you practically nothing, just like I said, because on Polygon gas fees are so low. But it definitely, I think, is going to make the whole user experience a lot smoother, and just a big reason, just feasibility, that we wouldn't have been able to do what we're doing with Nomo on the Ethereum mainnet.
Heads up though, if for whatever reason you're living in Europe, I recommend you can go ahead and use ramp.network, and you can onboard directly onto Polygon with Matic and USDC, and you can trade the USDC for DAI right there on Matic, and then you can go ahead and save yourself the bridge fee. So that's another way to do it. I'm not sure, they were supposed to have it set up for US by now, but I went ahead and looked yesterday, and still don't have that feature yet, but I'm being told it's going to be happening soon. Maybe not in time for a Nomo launch, but for European users, if you want in, that is one way to go ahead and do it. That will save you a lot of money in gas fees.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a huge, that's a huge development in itself, like to be able to just purchase directly as opposed to having to bridge.
Absolutely.
So that's Polygon. The other question that I wanted to address that I think people have had is, why are we doing all this in DAI, as opposed to just like selling the tokens in ETH, or maybe a different stablecoin? So we decided to do it in a stablecoin because of how all of the rewards and the flow of funds take place. It's kind of, in some way, to think of Nomo behind the scenes as almost like its own DeFi protocol, in the sense that it's taking the funds that are collected from the sale of the player tokens and staking them to earn interest. right? And that interest that's earned each week is what gets paid out to all of the participants based on how your players perform. So what we're not doing is drawing down the rewards pool because of the fact that player tokens remain eligible and good for multiple seasons. If we were to draw down each week from the base rewards pool of the funds that we collected, season 2, there wouldn't be any rewards left because everyone would be still, they'd be using your player tokens again. And where, what are you supplementing that pool with? So we've created a strategy that incentivizes users long-term, and I think will bring more and more long-term value to people that hold their player tokens beyond just the players getting, more playing time. So the pool of funds will be staked in an interest-bearing protocol. That interest is generated, gets paid out, but that interest will continue to accrue in the off season. So come next season, the reward amount is going to be significantly higher than it is just this, in this first season. So there's in season 3, it's going to, be X amount higher as well. So there's because of that, we're using a stable coin for the fees because that just makes it smoother and an easier process for us to putting everything into the reward strategy and to sort of the reward pool and start generating that yield that becomes the reward that gets paid out, as opposed to the protocol converting from ETH to a stable coin. And we also specifically chose to use DAI over USDC because DAI is more decentralized. And given what we're doing and how we're approaching this, that's preferable for us and an option we wanted to go with for this first league. That might change for the next one, but for this one, we decided to go with DAI. And like I said, if you have USDC on Polygon or ETH, it is very easy to go and just swap it for DAI on Polygon and not have to pay very much at all in transaction fees to do that. So there isn't a massive, additional cost or added cost to doing this for users. Just a couple extra steps, which are pretty easy in my opinion. All right. Trying to think, is there any other questions maybe you guys wanted to bring up or ask regarding Nomo that I didn't cover? I know it went over a lot, and there's also a lot. We have a Medium article out that has an FAQ about the drop in the league and details around scoring. We have our documentation and docs with a lot of stuff there, and we're going to continue to release more and more information about the Nomo drop and the Nomo leagues over the next few days. Nothing? All right. Okay, so with the last few minutes, maybe like last 10 minutes, I kind of posed this last section as just future dev. It's just an opportunity for us to kind of talk about some of the other stuff that we are envisioning. It's not a roadmap necessarily because everything is still, TBD and subject to more discussion. But I think for the community tuning in, if you watched, took 40 minutes and watched the whole thing, you might as well be rewarded with some alpha. So yeah. Sorry.
No, go for it, Jake.
I was going to say, I think at first, just like a top one that we can get through quickly is when other sports, other than football, because this is something people have asked and we've talked about, but we haven't given clear dates to. So Nate and Zarin, you guys want to get up to on the crypto fantasy side?
Yeah, so on the
crypto fantasy side, the plan right now is to really focus on improving the user experience for the existing football league. So for the existing NFT holders, get out an awesome leaderboard, fully kind of spec out our back end so that we can kind of continue building this forward. And then also on the smart contract side, we obviously have made a lot of learnings, and I think joining with you guys and LeagueDAO, we've been able to take a lot of insight from what you guys have done with polymorphs. And so we're basically rewriting this contract probably for a third time. So for NBA, NHL, and future leagues, we got a lot of kind of plans that we want to do. And, you know, if you can imagine from the polymorph perspective, it's things like, you know, we'll be able to put trophies on the teams that have won. We'll be able to potentially add scrambling of position players or flex players into this kind of protocol and just increase the game theory and the fun that you can have with this. So things like that. But our main focus for the next couple of weeks is let's get this leaderboard out. And then after that, when there's some good experience around this, it's okay, now what's our timing for adding new sports?
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be huge for the overall, just like game experience. Cool. RJ, you want to jump in?
Yeah. You want me to talk about PECs and what we're thinking about there?
Yeah.
All right.
Talk about your pecs.
I'm going to talk about my PECs and flexing them, working them out. So, hi, everybody. I'm RJ. I just joined recently because I had an idea. I was thinking about Nomo or an idea similar to Nomo, and I just kind of found Jake at the time that I came up with this idea, and it seemed like there's a lot of similarities to Nomo, but the idea as it stands, and we're still trying to figure this out, like how to do this properly from a legal and technical standpoint, because we want to make sure we're following everything by the book. And we are also making sure that this can technically occur. But the idea essentially revolves around taking the concept of Nomo and then expanding it to millions of users by going ahead and taking the NFTs. And then we're not sure how exactly we're doing this, but current idea is that we fractionalize the NFTs and that we're able to go ahead and from there take the NFTs, form different teams, form different tiers, and then we can do some things with different formats, head to head. We can go ahead and form different leagues. There's a couple different ways to go ahead and skin this, but the basic idea is that you're now able to get rewarded pro rata per fraction of the NFT that you hold. And it opens that up and makes it a lot more dynamic, makes it a lot more expandable to different people, to a larger supply of players. And on top of that, you also get access to the various DeFi money Legos, which enables you to do some very interesting things when it comes to what you can do strategy-wise, what you can do in terms of your ideas of how well a player will perform. And on top of that, we can also, and we're calling it PECs to show it as this kind of player exchange that makes it this really, really dynamic game. And I'm really excited to be working on it in the background. And really interested to hear anybody who listens to this all the way, how they respond, what they think of it, and how we can go ahead and iterate on this.
I think what's really exciting about it too is like it definitely builds on the foundation that we are creating and have created. And so like it just takes it to a whole other level, which is rad. And I mean, I think we've talked about on prior calls, like the idea for like next season having, sort of tokenized fantasy sports version 2, where, things like head-to-head competition, setting an actual lineup and team, and things like that. And I think this is the idea that you've had kind of takes that and like runs with it in a cool way that also is in line with just like the other underlying piece of this is like how are we applying, you know, crypto advancement and just like, you know, things like DeFi and things like that to the game experience, because that's just like a really, it's like, you know, that's what makes it different and unique. So like, it's not just like, oh, we're just doing head to head, you know, but it's on chain. Like, how do we do this in a way that's actually like more interesting and getting into that element of like, yeah, the like quote unquote, you know, money Legos.
It definitely also feels like the natural evolution of both Nomo and Crypto Fantasy, like a coming together of it when you get to build your teams. Right? It's just like Crypto Fantasy, and then possibly your fractionalized players can be like merged together into an NFT, and that's your team. There's a lot of fun things we can do there.
I feel like this is that meme. Like, it's all so exciting because it is like together fast.
Yeah,
memes are life.
Speaking of memes, this was actually kind of the onus for it, because I have some friends that are kind of normies and that aren't really interested in crypto, but we talk a lot of sports together, and they keep putting up those memes where it's like, you've got $100, assemble your team, and they assign a dollar value per player, and then you're supposed to make your roster, and you're like, I go with Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, and Walter Payton right here. The same kind of onus. The idea that you have a limited amount of funds, you got to assemble your team and then see how well they perform against the market of sports data.
Yeah, definitely. And like that, like you said, like that thing creates the opportunity for more of the like head-to-head kind of like community format, as opposed to like just like broad, you know, protocol wide, which is also, you know, that's kind of part of the fun too, is like the micro games in fantasy sports. Is it's not just like, do I have the best team in this league? It's also like each week, you know, like, is your team better than the other team you're playing? And it might not mean that you actually have the best team, but like, what's the strategy around doing what you need to do to win that week? And like adding that element and that game theory and that skill, I think is so huge to what makes it fun. And so we want to make sure that we're building something that incorporates that.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how it goes ahead and translates to football. I'm excited to see how it translates to basketball. If I had time to watch the English Premier League, I'd be very excited to watch how it translates to the English Premier League.
I mean, you know, fortunately, Premier League games are always, you know, before football. There's always usually like one Sunday game, and at least for me, being on like, I mean, it's still the same thing anywhere in the U.S. Like, I feel like you can catch one Premier League match before NFL starts.
Yeah, but it's never one of the teams I like. I like Chelsea and I like Tottenham. Like, I don't ever get to catch them.
Yeah. Premier League fans watching this are just like all scoffing. The two worst teams in so many people's opinion. But I can't blame you. All right. Okay, so we're almost out of time. I'm a Man U
because of the Bucks. So I feel like they're the worst. That's like being like a Yankees or a Lakers fan.
Yeah, I think that's just like exactly like Man U or Chelsea. Like both of them, it's just like neither are good options. Yeah. Problem is with being in the US, it's like I always struggle with like I try to get behind a Premier League team, but I need to have some like emotional connection to them, like some shared experience. Like, you know, like for me, like the Dodgers, like I have so many like emotional like ties to them just from growing up and watching them and like seeing them be terrible and like my family always watching them. Like I have like a connection there, but like it's really hard to just pick a random team that you don't have any connection to and like become invested.
Sure.
I feel like that's what everyone and like, yeah, outside of the US feels about all the fantasy football stuff we're doing, where they're like, why am I supposed to care about these people?
And you got to be in the time zone to be able to watch it live to really share in the ups and downs.
Yeah, it's
6
true.
a.m. Time to get up. 6 a.m.
Yeah. Early bird gets the worm. All right, so the last thing I wanted to, just in terms of future debt before we wrap up, is it's something that someone in the community had brought up, and I wanted us to talk about it a little bit, at least a little bit. Is there's been an idea proposed around the concept of basically a burn player token functionality for the Nomo League. So the ability for someone who mints a player token to be able to burn that player token, as opposed to, only having to go and sell them on the secondary if they aren't happy with the players that they have. And the idea also being that if you're burning a player token, you then maybe you're getting your principal that, or whatever the mint price that you paid back. And so then it sort of works like a pool together, or maybe it's you get a mint pass to mint a player token next season. That's something someone brought up, and it's an interesting concept. Like, it opens up a whole range of opportunities and sort of ideas around the league or just the Nomo game format as it is today. But I wanted to bring it up for us to talk about it and hear what people think.
The entire concept it follows the concept around lossless bets, and I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I think that's what we should be pushing, so I'm all for that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's something interesting about the reducing the total supply of players, right? But it's almost like those people who decide not to burn their players and hold on to them, there's potential reward for them, right? Because there's more upside. Or you think if there's, the next season we mint another batch of players, and it kind of I don't know, it does create an interesting game theory of is it really beneficial to burn a player token, or is it better to just hold on to them or try and sell it, on secondary? There's adding in that other piece and option of what you can do is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, basically you open yourself up to, you're basically betting, if you've got a bench warmer, you're basically betting that if you hold on to it, that somebody's going to get hurt or somebody is going to just do terrible, and that this person's going to come in and replace them. And then you're going to get some yield out of it. And that's the main basis behind it. And especially if we're talking around the ideas of packs, that's even gets even more interesting, especially with if you have multiple fractions of a player, and then you have this dynamic supply of shrinking and expanding. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think what also is interesting is the element of, there's a lot of players that I think are borderline, right? Like the wide receiver 3 for teams where, they're not stars, but they produce and generate points, or maybe they're wide receiver 4 and maybe they generate points, every other week, and they're kind of boom or bust. And, what happens with those? And I think those are the ones, there are certain people might feel like this guy's never going to play whatever, but there's the other side to it where I think there are people that people might not be familiar with, and it's that's where it gets interesting, because there is still value for them, and and if those players are not active in the league because someone burned that player token, that is redistributing rewards to other people, right, and to more people, because you don't have that player taking that percentage of the reward pool.
I'm going to be really interested to see how the burning goes, because in most scenarios of the world history, Tom Brady would have been burned in one of those first 3 years.
Yep.
True.
only to be reminted again.
It'll be like that polymorph that's my profile picture. That's the shirtless guy. He was destroyed. We're never getting him back.
Was that like he got destroyed just in the testing of the like?
It's like basically the most like infamous, ugly NFT in history. So someone tried to scramble it, but then also made it famous. And they fucked themselves because I would have bought it for a lot of money at this point.
But yeah, I'm all in on Adrian Peterson. I'm gonna go pick him up for the next 4 weeks. Over the load for Derrick Henry.
I might actually lose in our leagues for the first time because in the Genesis League because I started Mike White, which seemed like a great idea at the time, but who knew he was going to get hurt and get knocked out. But he threw 95 yards in his first drive. I mean, shit, he might have thrown a whole bunch of, like, it was the right move. It just, injuries suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was ballsy to start him against the Colts, too, with that good defense.
Mhm.
So
They're
it
not
sucks
that
to be
good.
right and wrong at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, the Jets also didn't really have another option because he was the only other quarterback on the roster when Wilson got hurt, and then they added Josh Johnson and Joe Flacco.
Mhm.
Like, better off just going with the kid.
Totally.
But yeah, so I mean, I think the burn player functionality is definitely something that we're interested in exploring, and it's the kind of thing, if you're watching this and you've made it to the end of the call and you're the person that put this in the Discord, it's definitely the type of thing of put it in the forum, in the discourse when we launch that, and turn it into a proposal and have the DAO vote on it. So I think it's a really cool concept. It's like perfect. It's the perfect thing for us to be incorporating and like putting to a vote for the community, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, that was a full hour, longer than I expected it to be. But we had a lot to recap and update on. I mean, I get envious when I see the like Universe DAO calls that go like 30 minutes or 16 minutes. And I'm like, how do you guys get it all done so quickly? Yeah.
More that they happen, the less like weekly updates there are, because you're just kind of rolling out like stuff that you said on the last one. So it's like, yeah, the beginning ones are definitely more are longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to tell everybody what features we're cooking now, and then it becomes here's how we're executing on our features.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the last call we had was the crypto fantasy launch. This one's the Nomo launch. So that's what we get for deploying code really fast.
Mm-hmm.
We just got too much good stuff going on. All right. Well, appreciate you guys and appreciate everyone watching the video. Remember, if you made it all the way to the end, tweet us, send a tweet to @LeagueDAO, mention the great Hideo Nomo, and we will send you some Matic that you can use to purchase.
What was the deal? Because actually, if someone listens to the end, I feel like I want to send them additional Matic tokens.
I was just going to do, like, for the first, 5 people, we'll send you 5 Matic. It's not that much, but it's more than enough to cover all the gas fees.
You're going to be able to go ahead and pay all the gas fees for trading for a season with that amount of Matic.
Exactly.
So we should do for like another 10 people. If you say Brady, then I'll just cover that Matic card, just because like if you listen this long to it, I feel like we should do it. So there's 5 for Nomo and 10 for Brady.
There you go.
Perfect. All right.
Separate accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, separate accounts only. Can't just be one.
Yeah,
person,
you can't claim
one
both.